Mr. Morton?
Present.
Mr. Stuchel?
Present.
Mr. Edwards?
Present.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mr. Schildmeyer?
Present.
Mr. Culbertson?
Present.
And Mr. Estep.
Here.
Let the record show that all 7 members are present. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Mayor Stuchel to introduce our guests this evening.
So we're fortunate to have Jennifer Vatter from JMA Consultants, our longtime advisor, who is going to assist us this evening for the public hearing for the CDBG funding. So we'll introduce Jennifer, and she can go to the microphone to start this process. Thank you.
Good evening. As the Mayor said, I'm Jennifer Vatter with JMA Consultants, and our firm has been we're a city engineer and village engineer for quite some time, and we assist the village with the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is administered through Hamilton County for all of the jurisdictions in Hamilton County outside of the city of Cincinnati. So it's administered through the Community Development Department downtown, and there's a 3-year cycle. They administer a few different programs, but this is the 3-year cycle. So every 3 years, communities are eligible to apply for certain projects that are eligible, and you're funded typically for a community the size of St. Bernard in one of those years. So this funding would be for it's actually, they're a little bit later this year in getting it out, so it is for 24, 25, 26. Usually we're doing this in the fall for the upcoming year, but they just got it out, so we're doing it. So this would be for 24, 25, or 26. Some of the eligible activities, Community Development Block Grant is typically to benefit low to moderate income persons. It can also be used to remove slum and blight. It can be used for handicap accessibility. It can be used for senior citizen activities. Typically, you have to do those activities, most of them in an eligible area, and those are defined by block group, by census data. And in St. Bernard generally, and I can pull this out and provide copies if you want to see the areas, but generally it's bounded by kind of Ross Avenue, and then to the south, I guess would be accurate. Then like Kemper to the west, and then Burtis and Delmar to the south. And I can provide those areas. So in the past, we've done a lot of street improvement projects with that. You do have to meet their requirements. So some projects are easier to administer than others. This is federal money, and so you have to go through the requirements of the program. So certain projects, even roadway type projects that are very complex, we would advise probably not a good, project, but a lot of them you can use it for. We've done park improvements, I believe, in the past. Trying to think what else. We did some restrooms, I think, in Ross Park. We've done, I think, some playground equipment. I can't remember that we did any acquisition and demolition in St. Bernard, but so those are some of the activities that you can apply for. The village typically gets, in the last 3-year cycle, you got about $130,000. In the previous cycle, I think you actually got $150,000, and that went down because actually the village's MHI in general has gone up, the median household income, which is a good thing, but then it does, lessen your funding a bit. So as a rule of thumb, I would say that, we would kind of figure that you would get about $130,000. You can ask, some communities say, well, let's ask for $250,000. You can, historically, and I've been doing this about 25 years, you're not going to get it, and so, but you can, and if you want to apply for more, we can. I would just suggest that if it's a project that's like $200,000, you would be willing to put in those additional funds because you've applied for that project, and if you get funded for that project and you only get the $130,000, if you don't want to do it, then you have to go back and reprogram, and we would be doing this all over again. So it becomes, just a little bit sticky. Per the requirements of the program, you have to have 2 public hearings. So this will be the first of those 2 public hearings. And the first public hearing is really just to generate ideas, get any input from the public. And in the public hearing notice, and I believe it's on your website, residents can also email, and I think we put Peggy as the contact, email the village with any ideas that they have. And then at that next public hearing in 2 weeks, you kind of want to formulate what you would like to apply for. And then we'll put the application in. It's due at April 30th. So we have to have that in very shortly thereafter. So it's not a real cumbersome application, so I can get that together. But you will need to make that decision, what you want to apply for by, I would say, next day. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
I have one. If we had a project, would it have to be like one part of like a park? Or would, if we wanted to do something like Vine Street Park, could we do like the restrooms and a retaining wall? Or does it have to be like just one restroom or something like that?
You could put something like that together as long as and we could separate it into 2 projects. It's easier with the amount of about $130,000 to do one, but you could certainly separate it into 2 if you wanted to. You can, and you can apply for 2 separate projects if you want. We just always suggest, again, going through their requirement. It just takes a little bit of time, and so it's usually our suggestion. But you can certainly do 2 if you have 2 small ones. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. President. You said it has to be in by the 30th?
Yes.
So would we be okay with our next council meeting? Would that give her enough time to get it together, or?
Fair.
So that's our next hearing. So, yeah, we already have that scheduled. So, yes, I believe it would. This last round, we actually did a paving project, so, which was awarded in '23, but actually being done here in '24 for Kemper and Church. So it was an easy decision to utilize towards dilapidated streets, because we have plenty on the inner portion of St. Bernard that need to be redone. And so we took advantage of that because it was actually on the latter part of the cycle they brought it
Yes.
up. So
Right.
we took advantage of that rather than something in the parks. But we do we are looking at other projects that would be forthcoming that we're applying for on a larger scale for the parks. One, we're focusing primarily on, we going through the next round, will be applied towards here in the next couple of weeks, but we're talking about for Lower Ross, a roughly, $970,000 project, including a track. But we could reconsider again for the next year, once we have a plan in place for something larger scale, because we need to redo the field lighting, the retaining wall. But, once the demolition is done, then we can start talking about restoring and all that. So truly, if that may be a more costly project than what this might be able to fund. So I guess we'd have to look at that, on our wish list. But, yeah, anything is possible. So whatever ideas you have, move forward. But this was a pretty simple process once, other than the fact that I truly, honestly, the map that when we had to choose from streets makes no sense to me. And what I would have thought would have, basically the streets that we would have had to choose from were not what I thought.
Yeah, and with that, and it's an excellent point, because sometimes the lines where the block groups are, it doesn't make sense, and you think, well, this street one over is, certainly would be eligible, and another one would not. There is, you can do an income survey where you think, this is a street we really want to do, we really feel like it's eligible and would benefit those people. You can send out and do, it's anonymous, and you deliver to every resident, they fill it out, and they send it directly to community development. That takes a little bit of time, but we've done it a lot. So if you think that there's a street outside of there and you want to do, we can go through that process and see if and then they determine the eligibility. Yeah, and so their questionnaire doesn't come to the village, it goes directly down to community development, and then they determine if it's eligible. So that's a possibility.
Anyone else on council? Anyone in the audience have any questions, concerns, comments? Okay. And I'm assuming that if, as you said, it's on the village website, that if someone thinks of a project that whether, you guys will make the determination whether it qualifies or not, correct? Or we'll submit it
Yeah,
and
we
they'll
can,
make it.
yeah, we can give guidance whether we think it might qualify or not, and then certainly, ask community development if there was
So
any questions
basically,
about
we
it.
encourage anybody that has
Sure,
any thoughts
absolutely.
to get on the website
Mhm.
and submit it, okay?
Yep.
All right. With that, I guess we are done with this
All right.
public hearing. We'll see you on the 25th.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. Before we go to the rest of the agenda, I would like to ask that you please join me in a moment of silence for former Service Department employee Jerry Shipp, who passed away last month, and also for Carolyn Ungrew, who was the first female council member in St. Bernard. She also served 31 years as a city and village clerk. Carol was the aunt of Police Lieutenant Bill Ungrew, Treasurer John Ungrew, and the great aunt of Council Clerk Caroline Stegman. We ask that you keep all those families in your prayers and join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the written minutes of the March 28th council meeting. Mr. Schultmeyer,
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last council meeting.
Seconded.
motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Morton to approve the written minutes of the March 28th council meeting. Are there any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Obviously, as a reminder, as I just stated, there will be another public hearing at the council meeting on the 25th. All right, we'll move to reports of administrative officials. Mayor Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'd like to thank Jennifer Vatter from JMA for her assistance this evening with the first hearing on the CDBG funding. I will be providing council with a sample contract for the position of Director of Public Safety and Service, similar to that was previously done for the Deputy Tax Administrator. This would also detail any benefits that would be offered outside of any salary for that individual, and we're currently working through the search process at this time. I would also like to thank the fire service and police departments who assisted our residents during the recent storms. The fire chief has been working with Duke Energy currently to have a dead tree removed from Delmar Avenue, which was a hazard during the storms that actually caught fire. The tree was trimmed today, but will be cut down as soon as the appropriate equipment can be brought into the site. Thank you, Chief, for your efforts. To the residents of the flood-prone old subdivision, we are working with EMA and hope to have our engineers and MSD come up with a plan on how to resolve the constant flooding problem on Redwood and Woodside Heights. I know that there are many frustrated families, and we want this resolved so that you are not constantly dealing with your basements flooding. I would also like to thank my friends from Emmanuel United Church of Christ for inviting me to be their guest speaker at the Bookworm Diner. We had a nice lunch, and I could not have had a better time with this group. Not only did I get to read, I actually got to sing as I read. You all have heard, you're happy and you know it, and I was thinking that maybe we could have that as a council activity someday. Lastly, at the request of former council member Don Taberky, if you'd like to recycle your Eclipse glasses, you can place them in the drop box outside of City Hall, and Don will pick them up to be dropped off at the Cincinnati Reuse Center. Please bring them to City Hall before April 19th. And thank you, Don. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Law Director, Valerie Pemble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was handed this evening a notice from the Ohio Department of Commerce regarding retail liquor permits, and I guess the deadline for any objections to any C and D retail permits have to be filed and postmarked no later than May 2nd, 2024. So which means that if we would have to have a resolution concerning of them, I would bring it up at our next meeting. In my informal discussions with the mayor, it doesn't sound like we have any problem entities, but I do want to check with the fire department and the police department just to be sure, so we've covered our bases. So I may have for you a resolution or two related to liquor licenses at the next meeting, but I don't necessarily anticipate it at this point, but I did want to alert you to this. And as I said, this just came to my attention this evening. Secondly, I was asked at the last meeting to look into whether or not we could post signs about use of air brakes or Jake breaks is, doing a little research is a term I'm learning now. It looks like we probably can do that. It may be something that is covered under our local noise level ordinance, though, so I want to talk with the chief of police and see what he recommends. So I don't have a draft for you to look at tonight, but I should have something emailed to you, and Patty will get something in your box to you within the next week. So I will have that for you if necessary at the council meeting, 2 weeks. Thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I did not ask Mr. Cunningham after the last meeting, but I think he's looking for this to be a temporary thing. And
Right.
I know I've seen him around, and I should have taken a picture. It's simply, on the sign, it simply says no engine brake. And we were sitting at the highway the other night, and I said to my wife, there was a truck coming down, and obviously as I drive trucks, I know, but it is very noisy.
Right.
In his defense, it's quite noisy.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes, I've seen some of those too. Like I said, it may be something that even we can bring in under the auspices of our existing noise ordinance. I just need to double check with the statute and with the chief of police.
Would you like a motion to place a
Yes, please.
resolution? Okay. Could I have a motion to place a resolution or ordinance on the table if needed for this event?
Mr. President,
Mr. Morton?
I'd like to motion to, let's lean back a little bit. I'd like to motion to put a resolution or ordinance regarding the air brakes on the table for the next council meeting.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Morton, second by Mr. Estep, to place a resolution or ordinance on the table if necessary for the noise part of this no air brake sign. Are there any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. If you need it, have it on the table.
Thank you.
Treasurer, Mr. Ungrue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the Star of Ohio statement as of the end of February. I was not able to present this last month due to the death of my father-in-law. But the total at the bank at that time was $11,126,958.53. And I'll ask the auditor to print another statement for the next meeting. Also wanted to thank the service departments. Had a moving van come down our street and backed into my wire over the house and almost pulled it down. It was hanging almost 6 feet from the ground. And by the time I took a shower and came out, the service department had already come and pulled the wire back up, so it wasn't a threat to anyone or to hurt any of the kids on the block. So appreciate their efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Morton.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 17th at 6 p.m. in the lower level of City Hall to discuss upcoming appropriations and the condition of large village assets. I do also want to say thank you to those who attended April's Community Connect. We were able to discuss a variety of topics, including pedestrian safety, council responsibilities, and committee definitions. If you couldn't make it to this Community Connect to share a concern, or if you have any suggestions for the next location, please feel free to contact me at cmorton@cityofstbernard.org. That concludes my report.
Connor, what time do you say the meeting is next week? 6. Thank you. Service, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Service Department would like our residents to be aware that starting April 22nd, the large section of the dog park at Ross Park will be closed for maintenance. The maintenance will involve leveling the ground, filling holes, and planting grass to enhance the overall quality of the park. We anticipate that the dog park will remain closed for a few weeks to allow sufficient time for the grass to grow and establish itself. Lastly, I'd like to again invite all to please join us for our upcoming Cleanup St. Bernard Day on April 28th from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. All participants should meet in the lower lot of City Hall prior to the start of the event. Trash bags and garbage pickers will be distributed for use. At the conclusion of the event, I would like to invite all of those interested to come by the pavilion at Vine Street Park for a grill out, thanking you for contributing to making our community a cleaner place to live. Whether you participated in the event or not, all are welcome. That concludes the end of my report.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Safety, Ms. Hausfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, I have the St. Bernard Fire Department's report for the month of February 2024. As far as fire incidents, structural fires, there were 4. Other fires, there were 5. Auto accidents, there were 9. Hazmat incidents, there were 2. Service calls, there were 4. Fire alarms, there were 8. EMS assists were 8, which was a total of 40. EMS incidents were 70. Elmwood Place contract incidents were 5. Mutual aid given, Norwood 1, Elmwood Place 1, Springfield Township 2, Gulf Manor 1, Delhi 1. Mutual aid received, none. EMS mutual aid given, Norwood 5, Springfield Township 2, and mutual aid received, Norwood 2. All units participated in search and rescue training at the Old St. Bernard Elementary and Mayday operations at the Old High School. The St. Bernard Police and Fire Departments held joint trainings at the Old High School on rescue task forces operation and active threat shooter scenarios. Firefighter EMT Josh Coletta started on February 21st. He is the first replacement for Captain Troy Myrick, who retired on January the 26th. As far as the St. Bernard Police Department, I have the police report for the month of February. Had 667 calls for service, resulting in 487 contacts. There were an additional 483 other service details that were not necessarily called in by the public. These calls for service included 29 total criminal offenses, resulting in 74 criminal arrests, 39 traffic citations, and 107 traffic warnings. Of these traffic contacts, 24 were primarily for speed and 4 were for OVIs. They responded to 13 accidents as well. As far as their news and notes, the police motorcycle is scheduled to be complete in mid-April and will be officially out and about very soon. Additionally, motorists are asked to be alert and mindful for all motorcycles and bicycle traffic as the weather finally starts warming up. That concludes those 2 reports. I did have a safety meeting on Tuesday, April the 2nd at 6 p.m. I will have more updates as far as what happened in that meeting at the council meeting. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've set the time for the next laws, contracts, and claims meeting. It'll be Tuesday, April 23rd at 7 p.m. following the CIC meeting here in council chambers. On the agenda are going to be the topics, continuing topics of short and long-term rental, the weeds ordinance, golf cart community, and the council attendance policy. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. The St. Bernard Garden Club will be hosting their first annual Beautify St. Bernard competition. Residents and businesses are invited to compete for the most beautiful front yard. Your design can be formal, seasonal, or natural. The contest will run from July 14th through July 31st, and you must enter your yard by June 23rd to kennethprice916@yahoo.com. There will be maps of competing yards, and ballots can be entered via the Garden Club's website or by hand at City Hall. Now is the time to start planning, and the top 3 winning yards will have a sign placed in their yard, and they will also get a Garden Club t-shirt. The village, along with the Recreation Department, would like to thank the following sponsors of the village annual Easter egg celebration: City Electrical Supply, Coolant Control Kodiak, Feitner Plumbing, La Rosa's Pizza of St. Bernard, Next Generation Insurance Agency, Ram Clean, Wiedeman's Fine Beer, and Wyoming Air. Thanks, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Estes.
Thank you, Mr. President. As part of business and industry, I'm inviting representatives from the 2 high schools to share with us what's going on in their school/district. I spoke with Dr. Webb from St. Bernard Elmwood, and I'm inviting her or a rep at the next council meeting on the 25th. I was headed down to Bacon, but Steve Shad is just in the process of getting back from his over-the-seas trip. That concludes my report.
Thank you. This time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? If not, then I show one ordinance or resolution, if needed, to address the no air break with the noise ordinance.
Mr. President, also, I did mention that there may be a resolution if we have an objection to a particular liquor license holder. So I think and I don't know if I will, I'm gonna do the research, but it may be that we need one.
I was gonna say, clerk showed me that earlier, and I thought that was just, I believe it states that the retail liquor permit holders, their licenses will expire June 1st of this year. So I'm thinking it's like the old Sherpy's that now has a liquor license next to Dairy Queen. I thought it was those retail.
I'm not sure that it's limited to that. I need,
Okay.
like I said, I've just seen this evening, so I need to do the research
Okay.
on who and what is involved. But it does say that if we want to make an objection, we have to pass a resolution.
And we typically haven't done that. If we haven't heard from the police chief or fire chief that there's been an issue, we typically have not. But I will put it on here the
Thank you.
same way if needed, just in case.
Yeah,
Mayor?
there may be one, so that's under discussion. And then also, just as a reminder, if I could, so there was reference a couple times to the discussion about an air brake. So if you want to correct that to engine brake.
Sorry, no engine brake, that is correct. Think I'd know that. All right, I will entertain a motion then to, if needed, to place a resolution or ordinance on the table dealing with the liquor permit request.
Mr. President,
Ms. Housefeld,
I'll make a motion to, if needed, to put that liquor license resolution on the table for the council.
I'll second it.
motion by Ms. Housefeld, seconded by Mr. Estep to place, if needed, a resolution or ordinance on the table dealing with the, not rejection, but the questioning of the liquor permit, issuing of the liquor permit. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? So ordered. All right, so those two potential ones. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
Seconded.
A motion by Mr. Culbertson, second by Mr. Morton to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.